What you are about to see might be considered disturbing and could haunt you for long after. You might not believe it, you might scoff, but to those who want to know what went bump in the night, join us, for we are Spectral Seekers.
Today on Spectral Seekers, we've decided to focus on two of the most prolific and well-known people in the paranormal world, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed and Lorraine were some of the first respected paranormal researchers to bring paranormal research into the mainstream and were famous for working on some of the scariest and extraordinary cases to date. Many of these cases have become legend due to exposure by the media and various adaptations in film and television. In this video today, we'll be looking at the history of the Warrens and some of their most famous cases. Now, before I get ahead of myself, I think it's important to start from the beginning, as it always starts with the one person, or in this case, two. Edward Warren was born on September 7, 1926 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. This was a quiet town that Ed grew up in. However, his home wasn't so quiet. From the age of 5, Ed said he had continual paranormal activity throughout his household. These experiences include audible footsteps, heavy breathing, shadow figures, and glowing orbs of energy he would later call ghost globules. According to the Warrens' website, Ed recalls his father telling him there's a logical reason for everything that happens in this house. However, his father never did find out any of those reasons. These experiences resonated with Ed and would later become his inspiration and his obsession with the paranormal. Believe in this sort of thing or not, fate is a funny way of bringing two people together who seem to be destined for each other. In Ed's case, he met just that person at the age of 16. He met a young woman named Lorraine Moran while working at the Colonial Theatre in Bridgeport, Connecticut. After walking Lorraine home one night, Ed is quoted as saying, "And that's how it all got started." Jump ahead in time, and Ed has joined the Navy, survived a sinking ship and the Second World War, as well as marrying Lorraine and had their first daughter together. Ed and Lorraine made money out of Ed's artwork. It was through the artwork that the Warrens began their investigations. The Warrens' website has a quote from Ed saying, "I'd go out in the middle of the road where they could all see me and start to sketch the house, and you'd see the curtains go back and forth." Lorraine would then approach the owners at the home and tell them how Ed loved to paint haunted homes. From there, the Warrens began to take their research more and more seriously. Ed eventually became a self-proclaimed demonologist. Demonology is the systematic study of demons or belief about demons, and is a branch of theology that focuses on supernatural beings who are not gods. Lorraine was a professed clairvoyant and light trance medium. Clairvoyance is the alleged ability to obtain information about an object, a location, a person, or a physical event through extrasensory methods. Trance mediumship is often seen as a form of mental mediumship. Most trance mediums remain conscious during communication periods, wherein a spirit uses the medium's mind to communicate. It wasn't until 1970 that the Warrens would experience their first famous haunt. A nursing student named Donna was given a used Raggedy Ann doll from her mother as a gift. Donna lived with her roommate Angie at the time, and for a while life with the doll seemed normal. This normality unfortunately was short-lived, and after some time the girls noticed strange activity coming from the doll. The girls are quoted explaining that the doll started making movements on its own, and it began as small shifts in position to moving from the bed to the sofa. Things escalated to the point where Donna was finding handwritten notes to blood-like liquid leaking from the doll itself. Donna and Angie had had enough and brought in a sensitive to figure out what was going on with this doll. After spending some time with the doll, the sensitive had figured out that the doll was being inhabited by the little girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had been found dead in a field that their home was built upon. Being compassionate, both girls decided to keep the doll. Unfortunately for the girls, the paranormal experiences started to become more insidious in nature. Lou, Angie's fiancé, began having nightmares where Annabelle was attacking him while he was paralysed in the bed, and then he would wake up with anxiety and pounding headaches, and would also wake up with scratches and burns all over his skin. Eventually, enough was enough, and the Warrens were called in to evaluate the doll. The Warrens proclaimed relatively quickly that the doll was in fact being possessed by an inhuman spirit. The doll was immediately confiscated and now resides in the Warrens Occult Museum. The story of Annabelle was adapted into a film in 2014. Hollywood being Hollywood, they made sure to put their own spin on the story to provide the audience with an overly exaggerated story of the famous haunting. This is easily noticed when comparing the doll from the movie and in real life. The Warrens' next big case began in 1970. The Perron family, Roger and Carolyn, and their 5 daughters wanted to move into a larger home to accommodate for their ever-growing family. They settled on a large home in Harrisville, Rhode Island. The Perron family soon realised that they weren't the only residents of this large home in Rhode Island. The family is on record saying they shared their home with a multitude of spirits, and their experience went from relatively friendly experiences, such as random smells of flowers in certain spots of the house, to playful, such as items being misplaced and furniture being moved around. And then they had violent and terrifying experiences. Carolyn Perron was usually the person on the receiving end of these violent and terrifying experiences. Carolyn described an encounter with an apparition at the edge of her bed. She described the woman as old, wearing a grey dress and vermin crawling out of her wrinkles on her face. The woman spoke to Carolyn and told her to get out or I'll drive you out with death and gloom. These experiences included being smacked, pinched, disembodied voices coming from around the house, and marks all over her legs, as if someone had stuck her with sewing needles. It wasn't until Carolyn felt as if the spirit was trying to invade from within her that she reached out to the Warrens for help. During their investigation, the Warrens have concluded that the spirit creating this terror was Bathsheba Sherman. Bathsheba was an alleged witch who lived on the land and cursed the location in the 19th century. In order to rid Carolyn of these experiences, the Warrens called for an exorcism. One of the Perron daughters is quoted in saying, "The night I thought I saw my mother die was the most terrifying night of all. She spoke in a voice we had never heard before, and a power not of this earth threw her 20 feet into the other room." Unfortunately, though, the Warrens were not able to rid the family of these spirits, and Robert asked them to leave due to their increase in activity created by their presence. The Perrons were forced to live there for 10 years due to their financial situation. They eventually moved away to Georgia in 1980. This story was later produced into the Hollywood film The Conjuring, which is in the same universe as the Annabelle film. The Amityville Horror is the most infamous paranormal case ever and received huge notoriety. Stories that come from the Amityville house itself include blood dripping from the walls, to possessions, to the house itself speaking to the occupants. On November 13, 1974, Ronald DeFeo ran into a local bar screaming for help that his family had been shot dead. Ronald DeFeo Sr., 43, Louise Brigant DeFeo, 42, Don DeFeo, 18, Allison DeFeo, 13, Mark Gregory DeFeo, 11, and John Matthew DeFeo, 9, were all found that night dead. Ronald confessed that night to his family's murder and is now serving 6 consecutive life sentences. There are some strange things that surround this murder. First, the neighbours surrounding the house said they heard no gunshots whatsoever that night. Second, the family members were found in their beds as if they hadn't been disturbed by the madness occurring in their house. During the autopsy, they found no drugs in their system. This being the case, it is extremely strange that none of the family members noticed the first gunshot or the ones after. 13 months passed and the house was left vacant, and on December 18, 1975, getting a great deal on the home, the Lutz family moved in. The now quiet Amityville home belonged to George and Kathy, along with their children Christopher and Missy. They settled in for the long haul. Since the house had an awful background though, George and Kathy had a priest come in to bless the new home. Allegedly, the priest felt cold spots and could hear voices all over the house, and did not mention anything until after the Lutzes were forced out of their home. From day one, the Lutzes experienced strange circumstances such as cold spots and strange sounds from around the house, and the experience escalated as time went on. And some experiences included foul, rotten odours and loud voices. And one experience included George Lutz waking up to his wife looking like a 90-year-old decrepit woman. And only after 28 days, the Lutzes could no longer live in the house. In comes the Warrens 20 days later after the Lutzes fled the house. The Warrens were called in by Marvin Scott, a local news reporter for Channel 5 News. During their investigation, Ed said he was physically pushed to the floor, and Lorraine was plagued with horrible images of murdered family members all over the house. After reviewing their evidence, there was only one piece of evidence that was compelling, and that was this photo of a little boy, who was not present for the photo, so it's claimed. He does look suspiciously like John Matthew DeFeo, though. The story of the Warrens is without question compelling and haunting. Although controversy surrounds their cases, people can't be helped in being compelled by it. Unfortunately, Ed Warren passed away on August 23, 2006, at the age of 79. Lorraine, however, can still be found running the Warrens Occult Museum, which can be found in Monroe, in Connecticut. The case of the Warrens is indeed an intriguing one. Join us next time, but until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep on seeking. If you enjoyed this video, then please like and subscribe and enjoy our other content, as well as liking our social media.